Time to talk to our friend Sam McKewon from the Omaha World Herald. Sam, how are we this morning?
Hey, I'm great. How are you guys?
I'm good. So, Sam, I liken this to boxing, but I think it's like that as a fan in general. I said I can't fix those. I said, usually I like to say, comparison is like the thief of joy, and my buddy was telling me this morning. He's like, hey, at my sermon on Sunday, it was right on point. It was there. You can't have judgment and joy can't coexist peacefully. And I'm like, you know what? That's like fans, right? We're constantly comparing and contrasting and judging. How did you keep yourself, or do you keep yourself from knowing what you see week to week and still know that Michigan is coming to town?
Well, I think that probably happened a lot less on Saturday, at least for me. I mean, I think you're kind of both teams are playing in real time, basically side by side, and Michigan's playing a lot better on Saturday than they did against Oklahoma, and their interim coach had a reason for that. And so, obviously, there's time to think ahead, and I'm sure after that game was over, there were a number of players, and there may well have been starters on the bench in that second half. The game's already in hand. They're excited, for their teammates, but they might be glancing up at that score and seeing Michigan's going ahead 50-3 and 49-3. And okay, we know what's coming. And I think probably by the time everybody got to the locker room and everybody kind of had a moment there to celebrate that win, everybody's mind had moved forward. So now they get to just go ahead and prepare for that team and be ready for them. I'm sure they've been in the back of their minds for a couple of weeks. Although, I think there was certainly a lesson that Rhule wanted to get through in the Akron game and wanted the team to really understand that it couldn't look ahead, or it had to stay really focused on that second half. And I thought he did a great job of delivering that home. And then I felt like on Saturday, they probably could have named the score there. Houston Christian was pretty banged up, and
they were dropping like flies, weren't they?
Yeah, you want to do right by those teams, and not overly, because that was their third game of the year. If that was the first game of the year, it's probably a little different. One of the things that people always overlook is that SEC teams tend to play FCS teams real late in the season, and that's the best time to play those teams because they're banged up and they really cannot compete with, upper echelon SEC teams. They just can't. It's too hard in almost every case. Early in the season, it's a little easier for them, but I felt like as that game wore on, it was pretty clear that Houston Christian's lines really weren't going to be able to hold up, and I thought Nebraska did a nice job of continuing to play football, but not, not trying to get a bunch of guys, hurt. Because HCU, I'm sure, has designs on doing well in the Southland Conference and playing good football. So certainly that second half felt like more of not quite a spring game feel, but a little bit more of, okay, let's get this thing home without anybody getting too hurt.
Yeah.
And now they get to go play Michigan, and everybody's ready. I can just kind of tell just by Saturday and then what I suspect we're going to get this week. Everybody's going to be really ready to go for that game.
Sam, I got to be honest. I'm just telling you, all us old heads don't agree on everything, especially from 95 to 2025. But one thing to a man we all agreed on with Coach Rhule that resonated it in that halftime speech last week was he gave an example, a legit example to what we always thought, right? When he said, they don't respect you. You need to make opponents say, we're not coming back to Lincoln. We used to always say, make the check not worth it, right? Like, I know, Sam, I'm just, this is just the realist in me, right? Like, this is how we thought. It motivated us. It kept us sharp to just bury teams that took the money. And we looked at it like they were sacrificing their players. So,
right.
I say all that to say that part, it doesn't bother me because at some point I want somebody to not take the extra $200K to come here because they have their players' concern, their players' best interests. Like
yes.
That's that's what I want to have happen ultimately is, yeah, we like the money, but we want to play the next week, right? Because that's how you know that you're back. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So that's what so I don't balk at being nice to anybody, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, there's only so many teams that'll pay what Big Ten and SEC teams will pay. So
yeah.
Some of these teams will be back. But now, all that said, the FCS teams Nebraska is going to play going forward are North Dakota, South Dakota State. Can't remember the other one. UNI. These teams are, in my opinion, better equipped to at least, handle the physicality of it. So I think Nebraska is going to be fine, and now they get to play a team that I think is an even match, and Nebraska might even be a little bit better team. We'll see.
We're talking with Sam McKewon from the Omaha World Herald. Sam, before we get on to Michigan here, I'm not like DB. I find a lot of joy in judgment. Was any part of you looking around this week around the world of college football, and you're like, ooh, some of those third, fourth, and fifth interceptions from DJ Lagway look pretty rough, and Arch Manning is playing an opponent that's probably not much better than Akron, and I would say certainly not better than Cincinnati, and he's on that took him to the fourth quarter to crack 100 yards.
Sam, I gotta cut him off. He spent 5 months. He dragged you into it too with the year 2 young quarterbacks, and why not Raiola?
Pretty good OC too. Just
I mean, it is, to his credit, it is amazing how the assumptions that were made about a lot of these second-year guys that didn't include Dylan just haven't come to fruition. Are you shocked? Because I am. I mean, Sellers has been pedestrian. Arch wins games and he gets criticized. Lagway's been awful.
Yeah.
Are you shocked?
I'm not terribly shocked about DJ Lagway. I mean, I don't think that he had the resume last year. He hadn't played nearly the teams that Nebraska had played with Raiola. I think that game was, that kid's trying to force some stuff and trying to win a game and obviously making a number of mistakes. And some of that's on his coach. Some of that's got to be an understanding from the head man all the way down that, hey, until near the end of the game, hey, we only need 3 points to tie the game. Let's not get caught up in stats and doing this and that. Let's go win the football game. And I appreciated LSU's approach to how they were playing the game, and I still think Florida's probably a pretty good team, but I think they're playing a really good defense that also understands what to do. And I think Florida's got a really good defense. Obviously, they have a very good defense, and so they'll be in some games this season. But no, I mean I think Raiola certainly was ahead of some of these players. I think some of the hype machine that exists is more related to the way that schools in the SEC get covered. And, Nebraska obviously has a large media contingent, but the Big Ten Network is not, and I'm not blaming the Big Ten Network here. I would say the Big Ten Network is pretty ecumenical, and they cover kind of everybody equally, and they don't try to hype a bunch of players up. They, Ohio State and Michigan are exceptions to that rule, but
my joke, Sam, right? With the Big Ten, it's like they want to. When they went to 9 conference games and the TV revenue, I'm like, they have this great big socialism philosophy of we want everybody equal, but at the end of the day, they're the most capitalistic bunch. So that's why
it's like the NFL. They want parity. They want everybody to be good.
Weird, right? You want parity, and up until 5-6 years ago, I always would say, at what cost? You aren't getting your teams into the title game. At what cost are you willing to do this? But I mean,
right?
What do I know with conference expansion and more money? Because they appear to be pretty good at the top right now.
They do, and the pro markets in Big Ten are part of it too. If there was a team that was doing what Indiana did last year, it would have been an incredible story in the SEC because a lot of those schools don't have pro teams in them. But Indiana is the Colts and the Pacers and Notre Dame and all these other things. There's all these other teams that are there, and Big Ten Network is still pretty laser focused on Ohio State, Michigan, and again, they like to tell a bunch of stories. I always have this, I watch a lot of BTN in the winter because basketball is on there and a lot of Nebraska games, and it's always you can always tell how excited they are when like Michigan State women's basketball is beating Nebraska. So it's like, I don't really understand it. Michigan State's up by 11, it's like, okay. So you can tell there's times when they're excited about certain programs or coaches or, old school Big Ten programs, but a lot of it is just, Rhule just doesn't get that level of affectionate coverage nationwide because the SEC gets a lot of it. And, one of the best quarterbacks in the country is probably the guy at Cal right now.
As a pup, he's pretty sweet. He's nice. I told Ravi they'd all week, right? We asked Brett Cianci, who we'll talk tomorrow. I'm like, that's the benchmark game for me in the Big Ten because I think Cal's going to win that game, and that was last Tuesday. And I don't know, Minnesota's still doing Minnesota things in the passing game too, and a young quarterback. But you kind of called that one when I said I was a little worried about them before the season started.
Yeah, we'll see how they play. Again, Nebraska has not won there in a long time. And Minnesota kind of lost the game because of the punt return. He fair caught a punt at the 2, and that turned into a touchdown drive once Minnesota punted. And then he misplayed a punt inside the 10. It rolled, and he tried to grab it, and he didn't grab it. And then California recovered. He happens to be maybe their best player on defense, but that's why special teams matter. The thing, the fair catch at the 2 was particularly egregious. It was ludicrous. He forgot where he was, obviously. And so, that stuff happens. That's why special teams is important. But, we'll see. And again, Nebraska's got its spotlight this week. They'll be on CBS. There are other games that are a big deal, but game day is going to Miami and Florida, and Miami's going to win that game. And so there's going to be a lot of eyeballs on Nebraska, Michigan. It'll be a big game, and it's an opportunity for Nebraska to say something about itself and Raiola.
I look like a real genius, guys, don't I? Harping on the fact that Underwood doesn't like to run, nor can he run. How about that?
He can run.
Oh, knock it off. We'll see. Oh, it was Central Michigan, right? Did you take a look at those starters? Let's cut it out there, Sam. So he can run.
He can run.
Sam, speaking of...
Yeah, he's a lot like Jaden Daniels. His game is not quite the same. But if people look at Jaden Daniels when he was at Arizona State, he didn't run that much either. He threw a lot for Herm Edwards, and then when he went to LSU, all of a sudden, he was running. And Bryce Underwood can run.
Might be the pokey factor. Take him out to the pokey.
It could be. Yeah, it could be. I think they probably all got together last week and said, whatever we did against Oklahoma, we're not doing again. We're going to turn the kid loose and let him make mistakes.
Yeah, he's going to take some shots this week. I can tell you that. Because
he is.
I do know Nebraska is well aware that was going to be an added dimension. The cat and mouse this week should be sensational.
It should. Michigan does a lot of they've diversified their offense a little bit with Chip Lindsey. A lot of eye candy, a lot of motion stuff, a lot of, what I suppose people call orbit motion, satellite motion, whatever you want to call it. A lot of pre-snap stuff. They're going to run some tempo at times, so they're willing to go fast. Underwood seems to be able to handle it. He's a pretty good passer in short range, which I actually think is important because if you can't get going with a couple of completions, you're going to be in trouble against Nebraska. Nebraska, meanwhile, is going to counter with stuff that Michigan hasn't seen.
Yeah.
Well, maybe Oklahoma did some of that stuff. I'm sure Oklahoma did. Oklahoma's got stuff in its repertoire, but Nebraska's defense is probably about as good as Oklahoma's. Maybe not quite as good, but probably as good. And so it will be a cat and mouse game. Nebraska has to find a way to prevent big plays, so prevent the one big run, right? And Justice Haynes can break that.
Yeah, they better seek out some justice this week because figure out where that guy is.
Yeah, He's a good player. And then on the flip side of the coin, Nebraska's got to protect Raiola. They have to protect him. If you get in a situation where, because Dylan, if Dylan is looking at a 6-man pressure, I think he can make a play that burns Michigan with that. But if Michigan brings 4 or they bring 5, Nebraska must protect him, because if you're only bringing 4 and you're throwing into coverage of 7, he's going to get sacked. Dylan does not really like throwing into traffic that much. Sometimes he will, but he doesn't take a ton of chances that way, and so he'll take a sack. And so you've got to protect him. And he's got to protect himself by getting out of mistakes every so often or getting out of the pocket. But those are really important aspects of the game. And then, of course, special teams. I think what the teams do on the third phase may well determine the game. It's probably going to be a 3 to 7 point game, and it could swing on a special teams explosive play or a special teams mistake,
or not kicking the ball out of bounds or anything. Right? I mean,
right.
You just. And I'm not saying that because they continue to kick the ball out of bounds. I'm saying it could be something that innocuous on the surface.
Yeah, it could, and it could. So we'll see. Obviously, they have many kickoff guys that can handle the duties. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I mean, Michigan will play physical. They're not a finesse team. They're not as old or maybe as tough as they were the last couple of years on the lines. They lost a lot of guys, but they're still Michigan, and they will still play tough. And they have better quarterback play than they had last year. I mean, their quarterback play last year was the worst in the Big Ten and maybe the worst in the country. They're better than that this year, and they still won games last year that they shouldn't have won. They beat USC and Ohio State and Alabama with terrible quarterback play last year. So Michigan knows how to win. Playing left-handed. They're going to be a tough out on Saturday, but Nebraska's good enough to beat them for sure.
All right, so let me ask you this: relative to playing the long game in the Big Ten for status, the long game, will you learn more going forward from Nebraska, Michigan, Illinois, Indiana, or Rutgers and Iowa? If you're playing the long game, Sam.
Yeah, yep, that's a good question. I think that the flashpoint game is probably Illinois, Indiana, in part because it's really hard to know what Indiana is based on who they've played so far. Old Dominion, which did beat Virginia Tech, Kennesaw State, and then Indiana State. And
which
so
somebody up here called that Old Dominion game, by the way. But it was also the same guy. Well, it was also the same guy that thought that Temple would be in the hunt, as would Richmond playing North Carolina. So you win some, you lose some, Sam.
You win some, you lose some.
Yeah.
Oklahoma's a good team.
Yes,
and I don't have great pleasure saying that. I grew up in Nebraska in the 80s. I don't have any there's people around here who have a really nostalgic feel for Oklahoma. I'm not one of those people.
I agree.
But they're they're a very good team. They're a very good team. And they're going to be hard to beat. And they have really hard schedule. But that's an example of a team that could go 9-3 and make the playoff, because everybody acknowledges that they're good, and they lost 3 games by a total of 15 points or something.
Let me give you another one
to watch.
Let me give you another one. It's flying under the radar, but I know you're a late night, one eye open guy. How about Sparty traveling to Los Angeles? Big number that SC's land. I don't know, man. Michigan State is well coached.
They're well coached. I think USC could drop 42 or 49.
Really?
And so I think I do. Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Yep, out there late. And again, the one thing about USC is they can run the ball if you want them to, and they kind of ran out the clock against Purdue, sort of. But they can throw it 50 times, and I don't know if Michigan State can handle that. They played okay against Boston College.
Well, Boston College doesn't appear to be very good. Do you see what they did? You see what they did to Stanford? That was awful.
I did. Well, to be clear, Boston College can throw the ball though, and that's where I think Michigan State's going to struggle. Is I think they can't stop the pass. And so I think USC can score 42 or 49 on Michigan State, just throwing the ball for 400 yards.
Oh, Lord.
Doesn't mean Michigan State can't score, 28 or 35. They might. I don't think they will. But that's part of it, is I think Michigan State's going to struggle to stop the pass. And when they come here to Lincoln, Nebraska's got to be ready to throw it, because I think their front line's pretty tough, and they'll stop the run a little bit. But I think Nebraska will be ready and equipped to throw the football against Michigan State. But it's possible they go out there and they take USC to the wire. I do think USC is a better team out there. They really struggle on the road. I mean, against Purdue, that was kind of a weird, loose game, but they didn't play very well. And USC does not play well on the road. They are much better out there on their home field, especially on offense. So I think that game will be 17-21 point spread. I'm probably going to pick Indiana. I don't have Indiana ranked in my AP top 25 based on their performance.
I'm gonna get you out of here on that one too. So hold that thought. Finish on the AP the voting.
Well, I don't have them ranked, in part because of the teams they played and some of the issues they've had in the red zone. But I think Indiana's will beat Illinois. We'll see what happens. I don't know.
All right, let me.
But that's a big game. Yeah.
So, let me give you. I'm going to put Georgia in here, and I know all of a sudden they can't get a stop and they give up 3 play drives. But for the sake of the argument, I'm going to put Georgia in here. So there's Oregon, there's Ohio State, there's Penn State, there's Georgia. Maybe you still like Bama, like whomever you like in the top teams to maybe make a run at a title. Who do you feel you know the most about? Is it Penn State? Did we lose you, Sam?
Oh, okay. I thought he was just thinking really, really hard.
Who do you feel you know the most about?
Out of the top teams, so like national title contenders, it might be Penn State. I mean, that's kind of why I leaned on them early, because they had the most returning, which had a sense of who they were. I don't know, because I don't feel like I know Georgia. I don't totally trust Ohio State yet.
Me neither.
We have Sam back.
Okay. Hey, Sam.
Yes.
Last one. I appreciate you coming back. As a voter, of the top 8 or 9 teams that you feel like can make a run at winning a title, who do you think you know the most about?
Let's see. So I think the team that of that bunch that I feel like I know the best is Penn State. Now we don't know how they're going to interact. Well, they're going to play Oregon and Ohio State, and I think I know how those games are going to go, but I know the most about their rosters and the way they play and their offensive coordinator and their defensive coordinator because he was at Ohio State. So I probably know the most about that team. And I would say that the team that's still, kind of an uncertainty to me is Oregon because of the variability of their playing, like what they did at home and then going and playing in a monsoon for a quarter and a weird environment at Northwestern. And so Oregon we'll learn a lot more about. We will not learn anything about Oregon this week when they play Oregon State. Poor Trent Bray, great guy, great coach. Obviously a tough situation there with their roster and whatever's going on. So we won't learn anything this week. We'll learn a lot about Oregon when they play Penn State out in Happy Valley. So those are probably the 2 teams I know the most and the least about. And then, the other teams that are in the mix there. I think it's wide open once it gets to the playoff structure, guys. I don't think that there's like the number 1 seed's going to roll and it's going to be easy. No way. I think it's wide open. And so if a 9-3 team makes it this year, they could win the whole thing. Like this is a New York Giants 2007 kind of thing. Like it's kind of wide open. There's a lot of teams that could make it to the final, and there's a lot of teams that could qualify for the playoff. I think parity is here, and it's great.
That's our guy, Sam McKewon. Sam, appreciate the time as always. Great stuff. We'll talk to you next week.
Take care.
Thanks, Sam.